Functions are the built-in tools used by Excel to perform simple or complex calculations. Excel is a very powerful calculator and has many functions that we can call on to make the task of calculating much easier. There are statistical functions, financial functions, database, logic, text, and even engineering functions. A function is normally written like this. It's a formula, so it starts with an equal sign. Then we include the function name, followed by the open curve brackets or parenthesis. Then we place the cell range that we want to work on, and finally we close the brackets. And that's the basic structure for most functions. This is a function that will add up a group of cells. So the name of the function in this case is sum, and the group of cells that we're working on is B4 to B9. And we'll be using this exact function in this following exercise. I've opened the Beverage Sales 04 workbook in Excel, and this is the file we're going to be working on to see how the sum function works. This is a very simple spreadsheet showing the days of the week and the names of the beverages that we might sell. The data is stored in the data block, and this figure represents how many coffees we sold on Wednesday. This figure here represents how many hot chocolates we sold on Tuesday. So it's a very simple, basic, easy to understand spreadsheet. What I need to do here is to add up the number of drinks that I've sold over the week. Therefore, underneath here in cell B10, I want to add up all of the teas that I sold throughout the week, and that will give me a final overall total of the teas we sold. I might also want to add another formula over here that will calculate all of the drinks that I sold on Monday, regardless of what drink it was. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is come into cell G3 and I'm going to type in total. I'm going to do the same thing in cell A10. Now, from our previous exercises on basic formula, we could construct the formula as follows. If I type in an equal sign, and here my intention is to add up this group of cells here. I've started with an equal sign, so Excel knows I want to insert a formula. So one way of doing it would be to click on cell B4 and then type plus. Click on the next cell, B5, and again plus, and I can continue down until I've selected all of the cells, and you can see my formula equals B4 plus B5 plus B6, etc. And when I press enter, it comes up with the number 493, and that's a valid formula. That works very well. The only problem with this method is that the formula can be a little bit cumbersome, especially if we've got 2,000 cells that we want to add together. So to cure this problem, Excel offers us the opportunity of using functions. And the sum function, as I mentioned before, is perfect for this situation. I'm going to delete that formula that I've typed in, and this time I'm going to use the sum function to add that group of cells up. Again, it's a formula, so I'm going to start off with the equal sign. Then I'm going to type in the name of the function that I want to use, in this case sum. Once I've typed the name, I need to enter the open brackets, and then I'll type the first cell in the range, in this case B4. I now need a separator, and that's going to be the colon, and the last cell in this range is B9, so I'll type that one in. And finally, I'll close my brackets. So we can see the formula there, equals sum, open bracket, B4, colon, B9. I'll press enter, and you'll see that the total's been generated, 493. So over the course of the week, I sold 493 cups of tea. Now I could go ahead and do the same thing for the next column. So in C10, I could again type in that formula equals sum, open brackets, etc. But in earlier videos, we were introduced to something called the fill handle. And if I click back on this cell where I entered the original formula, you can see that I've got the fill handle, and I'll hover my mouse over that. I can then click and hold and drag right across, and by doing that Excel will enter the formulas for me. So here you can see we sold 388 cups of coffee, and there's the formula that goes to calculate that. So it's exactly the same as the first formula. The only difference is the cell range. We're now adding up this group of cells as opposed to this group of cells. Similarly, underneath the hot chocolate, we're adding up the cells in column D. Milkshake, that adds up the cells in column E. So we can enter the sum formula in the first cell and then replicate that formula across using the fill handle. Okay, let's see how this works up here in cell G4. This time we want to add this row of numbers. So again, we can use the sum function. I'm going to type in equals sum, open bracket, and the first cell in the range is this cell here, B4. So I'm going to type B4 in there, type in my separator, the colon, and the last cell in this range is F4. So I'll type that one in, F4. When I type it in, you'll see that Excel automatically highlights the cell range that you've selected. All I need to do now is to close my brackets, press enter, and there we have it, 149 drinks sold on Monday. Once again, I can come back to that cell that contains the formula, and it's shown up in the formula bar there. Hover my mouse over the fill handle, click and hold, and then drag down, and the formula gets replicated all the way down. Now I've gone down as far as the total here as well, so it's calculating the numbers in the total field at the bottom here, and it tells me that overall throughout the week I sold 1,239 drinks in total. Now the sum function is probably the most common function that we use with spreadsheets, and because of this, Excel has included a nice little tool that will allow us to enter these formulas with a click of a mouse. So I'm going to highlight this section here and delete those formulas, and I'm going to delete the formulas that I entered down the bottom as well. So I'm back to my original sheet. Again, I'm going to click into cell B10, and these are the figures I want to add up, and I can do it by using the auto sum feature in the top here. And if I hover over that, you'll see in the tooltip what's going to happen. Excel is going to enter that formula for me, and if I click it, you'll see Excel put the formula in, and all I need to do now is to confirm it by pressing enter. So by using the sum function, I didn't have to type all that information in. Now the sum function is there to help us and make us work quicker, but it's always a good thing to know how to type formulas in. There isn't a magic button for every formula you want to type, so you do need to get used to constructing formulas on your own. Let's come over in to G4, and again we can use that AutoSum function to generate a formula that calculates the drinks for Monday. But this time I'm going to come up to the ribbon and go to the Home tab. Because the AutoSum function is used regularly, right here on the Home ribbon we have a shortcut to it just over here. As I say, this is probably the most common function that we'll use, and this works in exactly the same way as the tool we used a second ago. So if I click on that one, again you'll see Excel highlights the area it thinks you want to calculate, and all we need to do is press enter to confirm. Once we've done that, we can select and replicate the formulas across, and select again and replicate the formulas down. And there we have it. We've calculated all our totals by using the AutoSum and replicating those formulas down and across. But here's a little bit of magic. Let's get rid of the formulas that we put in there. So I'll highlight that lot and get rid of them. So once again we're back to our basic spreadsheet with no formulas. All I'm going to do is highlight my data area. So this is the data that I want to calculate. I'm going to come down and across one and also highlight the area that I want the total to appear. And with that selection made, I can simply use the auto sum, and I'm going to come to the formulas bar. There's the auto sum, and if I click on that once, all of my formulas are inserted for me. If you lay your spreadsheets out in this way and your data is nice and neat, you can simply highlight the data, click auto sum, and all the formulas are entered in for you. Let's just double check. Let's go to this first one, equals sum B4 B9, and come over here, B4 to F4, and let's have a look down this bottom one. This is sum B10 to F10, so this is adding up these cells along here, and I can check that by double clicking. That'll open up the cell for editing, and it will also show me the cells that are being used. So that's a basic introduction to the sum function, which is probably the most common used function in Excel. And we'll look at other functions in later videos.